Alrighty, everyone, let's go ahead and begin the session. Welcome to the Graduate Diploma in Immigration and Citizenship Law Application Information Session webinar. Thank you very much for attending here. We have a great webinar planned out for the kickoff of our upcoming admission season. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the applications for the winter and the fall 2023 terms. So it's a really exciting time for us in the program. We're really anticipating a lot of great applications, a lot of great questions. So we are looking forward to moving forward here with this presentation. So one of the notes that I want to make, as I've already stressed, is that I'm asking individuals to hold off on the Q&A until we get closer to the Q&A section, where we will take your questions, and we will also allow you to upvote questions that you want to hear the answers to. So I'm going to be able to provide information for the questions that are the most upvoted verbally here in the session, but we're also going to try and write down as many of the answers as we can to individuals within the hour span that we have today. But as I've mentioned, the reason I'm asking you to hold off on your questions is because I feel that this presentation should provide a lot of answers to any of the questions that you may be experiencing. Also, there's great opportunities beyond this session to learn more about the program. Of course, I want you to visit our program website. I'll put links into the chat at the end of the session. If you haven't already visited our program website, do so, review all the materials there. And then if you do have additional questions beyond this session, what I encourage you to do is to follow us on Facebook. We have a fantastically active Facebook page. So just search Graduate Diploma in Immigration and Citizenship Law, like the page. That's where you're going to get a lot of updates about our upcoming events and any materials that we want to provide out to prospective students. Also, you can email us. So there's going to be an email address that I'm going to provide to you within this presentation. That's the way that you can contact our team directly to answer any of your direct questions. But without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the presentation. I am Don Ames. I'm the manager of admissions and recruitment for the GDipICL. So we take graduate diploma in immigration and citizenship law and shorten it down to GDipICL. And I'm going to be hosting a lot of these different webinars across kind of the admission stage. And then once you do become an applicant, we do have some webinars for applicants only. This is also a note for anybody who already is an applicant for the fall 2022 program. This is not going to be a webinar specifically geared towards you. You're already in the system. You've already submitted your application. You're ready to go when it comes to being reviewed. We're in the midst of reviewing applications for the upcoming fall term. So you don't necessarily are going to gather any important information at this point. If you do have any questions for us, you can get a hold of us via some of the emails that we've sent to you already. So just look for further information in your email from us. This is a session directly for those individuals who are interested in applying to our program for either the winter or the fall term for 2023. So hopefully you'll get a lot of information out of today's session. One of the things I want to begin with is the Acknowledgement of Territory. So Queen's University is situated on the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee people. We provide these land acknowledgements not out of obligation, but out of purpose and importance. For much too long, of what has been perpetrated against the Indigenous population of Canada, it's gone undiscussed, with atrocities coming to light every day and more acknowledgement taking place as to what the Indigenous peoples of Canada have faced for centuries. Now more than ever, we need to be open and honest about where we are and how we got here. Reconciliation and the righting of wrongs must take place at all levels of our organization and all organizations across Canada. And I just want to express my thanks for being on this Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee unceded land. Together, through deliberate acts like this one, we take steps towards a better tomorrow. So here's a little bit of an agenda as to what we're going to be covering today. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview on the GDipICL. We're going to get deeper into the application process. We're going to talk about admission requirements, the application itself, and key dates and deadlines. We're going to be talking about your next steps, what you do beyond today. Then we're going to get into some frequently asked questions. So I have some pretty common questions that we seem to get a lot within all of our inboxes or any of these webinars. I'm hopefully going to clarify a lot of the questions that you may have at this point. So we'll go through those and then we'll open up the Q&A for everybody. Again, you don't need to raise your hand throughout the session. We're not going to be taking questions verbally. You're going to use the Q&A box once I say that it's open. So just keep on holding on to those questions. I'll let you know when we're ready to go with the Q&A. So I've just kind of talked about that there. Let's go into an overview of the Graduate Diploma in Immigration and Citizenship Law, or GDipICL. We're a fairly new program on the scene here. We've been in operation for just a little over a year. We have roughly about 450 students currently in the program. We've just seen our first cohort of graduates, which is fantastic. And some of the key elements of our program is that we are delivered entirely online. The GDipICL was designed to be an online focused program, and there's no need for any travel or transition to Ontario, to Kingston specifically. You can complete this program wherever you are located. The GDipICL is the exclusive English pathway to becoming a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. So for those of you who are thinking that immigration consultancy is the pathway for you, and that's the program or the profession you want to get into. In the past, there have been a lot of different college-based programs where you could take the college program and then write the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants entry to practice exam. But now we have this agreement with the college, and Queen's is the only English language pathway education partner that you can take to become an RCIC. We do have a sister institution, the University de Montreal. They offer the French language program, but those are now the only two programs, education programs, that you can take in order to be eligible to write the RCIC's entry to practice exam. So keep that in mind. If you do want to take this education and become a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, this is going to be the program for you. There are lots of other things you can do with this education, though. We talk about all of the different areas where this education, these 9 courses, are really going to be leveraged within any professional workplace. For individuals who are thinking about getting into government, if you're thinking about getting to private organization that has international arms or wings of their organization, where there's key elements of immigration necessary, say you're working with foreign workers who need to be transitioned across the globe, this information and this education is really going to support you. And it's a really great pathway, of course, for individuals who are interested in getting into the profession of becoming an immigration consultant. But there's lots of other ways where you can utilize this education moving forward. I do see a couple questions coming into the Q&A. Please hold off on those for now. We'll get to the Q&A a little bit later. Don't write anything in there at this point. Just try to absorb what's being provided here in the session. Hopefully it'll answer a few of your questions, and then we'll get to the Q&A for things that haven't been answered later on in the presentation. The GDipICL is made up of 9 courses. For our full-time students, you take 3 courses per term, so you complete the entire program in a year. For part-time students, you can stretch that out. You can complete it in as little as 24 months or as much as 36 months. So it does vary depending on how you're going to be taking your study plan when you work with our program team to understand what courses you're going to enroll in and how long it's going to take you to complete the program. All of our courses are taught by world-renowned subject matter experts. They are fantastic instructors. And again, it's all delivered entirely online. And much of the program that you're going to be conducting is through self-directed learning. So there's no lectures per se that you're going to have to attend live. There are mandatory 2-hour tutorials per course per week. So for example, for the new students who are going to be coming in the fall, you're going to be starting off with IELTS ICL 810. It's the first course that every single student takes. For that course, there's a 2-hour tutorial. You get to schedule either on a weekday or a weekend, and those you have to be live for. Everything else with the program is self-directed learning. Your readings, your assignments, activities that you do online, projects, those are all things that you have to manage your own time for, and you deliver those whenever you complete them virtually to your instructor. So again, the only thing that you need to be live for are those mandatory tutorials. Everything else is done on your own time. It's why throughout our self-assessment, and if you haven't taken the self-assessment, we really encourage you to do so. You can find it on our program website. It does talk a lot about time management abilities. You need to be able to regulate your own structure and your own time because you're doing this basically on your own. And it's really important that you understand the time constraints and the requirements that are put upon our students. And for those who are taking this as a full-time student, you basically have to think about this as a full-time job. It's quite immersive. It's quite strenuous on the capabilities that you have to kind of execute upon. So really keep in mind about when you're thinking about applying for this program, think about that time commitment and just how you're going to be kind of self-regulating your own learning. But for those of you who are looking at this program to become a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, which does seem to be the number one reason why a lot of people are taking our program, which is fantastic. This is kind of the pathway that you're looking at. You're starting at the very left-hand side. It's where you're thinking about becoming a prospective applicant. You go through the admissions process, and if you're given an offer of admission, fantastic. Then you get into being a student. You take the coursework, you complete the 9 courses, you graduate, then you become eligible to take the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants entry to practice exam. And at that point, that's when you become a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. But let's start taking a look at where you begin in this journey, which is as an applicant. We have 2 upcoming admission cycles where we're going to be opening up the application at 2 different points throughout the rest of the year. And these are going to be your opportunities to basically apply for the program. The winter 2023 term, which does begin January 2023, that application opens in a few days on May 1st. So the application will remain open from May 1st until August 1st. So you have quite a bit of time to review the admission standards, to make sure you can gather all of your materials and then apply to the program. We need to see all of your documents at least by September 15th. Now, I'm going to explain the document requirements throughout this process. Ideally, you're not going to need that September 15th date. Everything's going to be provided well ahead of time, but just keep that in mind. We are going to then be making decisions throughout September and October and early November. Ideally, we're going to be letting everybody know their decision on their application by late November. We're not going to commit to any timelines at this point, but it's going to give you plenty of time to get yourself ready for the start of class, which will begin in January. Now for fall, if you're interested in starting in fall of 2023, that application opens on October 1st. So you do have a little bit more time to prepare for the application process, but of course, you're going to start the program a little bit later. All documents need to be submitted by May 15th because that application will run from October 1st of this year until April 1st of next year. And again, we're looking at a late June, early July decision timeline for all of our applicants. For those of you who are thinking about fall 2022, unfortunately, that application is closed. It has been closed ever since April 1st of this year. That is no longer a possibility. You need to think about the future intakes, either winter or fall. Fall is our bigger intake, so we receive more applications and we have more spots for fall students. Winter is a smaller intake, so keep that in mind. It's great to apply early, but we want to see completed applications in either of these admission cycles. So select the one that's appropriate for you. And another thing you need to determine is what type of applicant you are. We have 5 different applicant types that you may fall into one or several of these. It's all depending on how you want to go into the program and how you need to gain access to the program. The first 2 applicant types are just our standard full-time or part-time students. These are individuals who meet all the admission requirements and who just want to complete the program either as a full-time or part-time student. Now, for all of our terms, part-time spots are a little bit limited. So try to really focus on that full-time application. But if you do want to complete your studies as a part-time student, try to get your application in a little bit quicker, just because spaces are limited in both intakes for part-time applicants. Now let's talk a little bit about the Access Pathway applicants. The Access Pathway are for individuals who don't quite meet our admission standards. And I'll go through those here in a few slides. And if you don't feel that you have exactly what we're looking for our standard applicants, you can apply as an Access Pathway candidate. Access Pathway candidates need to provide a little bit of additional information. They complete the exact same application as everybody else. Everybody completes the same application if you're applying standard full-time or part-time, or if you're an Access candidate. But you also need to provide a complete resume, which highlights at least 5 years of relevant professional experience in relation to the immigration sector. We do accept resumes from all different types of backgrounds and any professional experience that you have, but just make sure that you're really utilizing that application to flesh out our understanding of you and what's motivating you to apply to the program. What are you going to do with this education? It's really important for you to utilize that application to give us a better picture of you. It's the only time that we're really going to see who you are. It's through that application and of course through your documents. But it's your opportunity to really tell us in a well-written statement why this program is important to you. So definitely utilize that as best as you can. Those 3 types of applicants, full-time, part-time, and Access Pathway, either full-time or part-time. You can apply to full-time or part-time through Access as well. You are applying through the School of Graduate Studies application page. For the other 2 types of applications, you apply directly through the GDipICL program page. And those are interest students for program credit or for no program credit. Let's deal with the for no program credit first. This is an opportunity for people to take our courses, a maximum of 4. You don't get any program credit for it. You don't complete the GDipICL graduate diploma. You don't receive any credentials. So really, you're only going to be doing this for maybe some professional development opportunities. Maybe you are a practicing lawyer and you want to take one of our courses just to kind of support your education. That's how you would apply as an interest student for no program credit. If you want to take a few of our courses but receive program credit, you go ahead and apply as an interest student for program credit. Again, you're providing all of your documents, you're meeting our admission criteria. It's just a different pathway. It's not an easier pathway. It's actually a more laborious pathway for those individuals who are trying to enter into the program. So really focus in on those School of Graduate Studies applications if you want to get into the full-time program. What's really important, and one of the first things I want you to take away from this presentation, is that you know which type of applicant you are. You can't make changes to your application once you submit it and you pay for it. Once that application fee is paid, you're locked into whatever you've provided. So this is where you need to take some time in filling out your application. While yes, the application is going to open on May 1st, that doesn't mean you need to submit your application and have everything ready to go by May 2nd. You have a 3-month window to provide information to us. We encourage you to get your applications in early, but we want your application to be right. Make sure everything is spelt correctly. Make sure you have your documentation ready to go and uploaded with your application. Make sure that you know if you're applying for full-time or part-time status. Make sure you know who your references are and you have their correct email addresses. We really want your application to be correct, because if it's not, you may have to reapply and pay another application fee. Application fees are non-refundable, and we don't provide any sort of leeway to flex anything within your application. So don't rush into just providing the application to us because you feel you need to. Make sure everything is correctly done so that when you submit, it's the right application for you. As I've talked about, full-time and part-time applicants, you are applying for direct entry into the program. You're applying via the School of Graduate Studies, or SGS for short, their application site. And again, you have to meet all the admission criteria and submit all necessary documentation. Access pathways, the same. These are individuals who don't meet our admission standards. And again, you're submitting all of your documentation, but you submit an additional document, which is a resume emailed directly to the program. One other thing, here's our second key takeaway for the session. Only apply once to the program. A lot of people feel that if they provide multiple applications, it gives them a leg up. They apply different ways. We only require one application. Even if you're thinking, well, I applied part-time, but I also want to be considered as a full-time student, That doesn't matter. We only need one application in the system for you. We actually, if we receive multiples, we're only going to consider the first one that was submitted. So don't apply multiple times to our program. Plus that can get costly. Your $110 is really important that you only pay that once. And we only need to see the one application. It narrows in all of the components, all of the materials into one location. Let's talk a little bit about the application at this point. Here are some of the elements that we request that you provide to us. Personal information, of course, name, birth date, things along those lines. Program details, whether you are applying as a full-time or part-time student. There are personal statement of interest questions where we ask you what's your motivation for applying to the program and what are you going to do once you graduate. Again, this is your opportunity to stand out, to demonstrate to us who you are. We really value well-written statements that are personal to you. And there are things that you write that you really want us to know about why you're interested in the program. There's a question if you want to be considered under the access pathway, you simply answer yes or no. There's going to be a statement that you can copy and paste into there. And then, like I said, there's a resume submission that you send directly to our email address. The other component that I haven't talked about yet are references. References need to be provided for all applications. And for those of you who have been out of a post-secondary institution for more than 5 years, you provide 2 professional references. These need to be managers or supervisors in a professional setting who have worked with you directly. It's important to make sure that you're not providing colleagues or personal friends, no family members either in this reference phase. They need to be managers or supervisors, people who have seen you work and how you operate in a professional environment. If you have attended university or another post-secondary institution within 5 years of your application date, you can provide an academic reference. We'd love to hear from a professor, someone who knows you in an academic setting, who can speak to your learning methods. It really is important to make sure that you have these references, talk to them ahead of time, get their approval that they are going to submit a reference on your behalf, and then make sure you have their accurate, up-to-date email addresses. They will receive materials directly from the School of Graduate Studies once you submit and pay for your application. So all that is automatically electronically generated and sent to them. If you don't enter in their correct email addresses, that may hold up your application from getting to us for review. So make sure you talk to your references, get their current up-to-date email addresses, and encourage them to make sure they're checking their junk mails just in case the email from the School of Graduate Studies goes awry and goes into that inbox. Once your application is done, you've reviewed everything, and you can save and come back to it at different points. Make sure that everything is correct, everything is spelt right. Even your name, as simple as that seems, it is important to make sure you get your name correct. That's when you sign off and send in payment for your application, and then you're ready to go. That's when you get into this stage. Within the application, before you sign off and submit, we want to talk a little bit about transcripts. Transcripts are really key for our assessment, and there are going to be some key components about transcripts that I'm going to talk about here. One of the things that I really want to highlight is that you have the opportunity to upload your own transcripts with your application. So there's a section where there's an upload based on the post-secondary institutions that you've attended, and you have to highlight all of your post-secondary experience. Whether you've attended a bachelor's and a master's and a graduate diploma, and you only provide your master's, that's not sufficient for the assessment. We need to see all of your transcripts at the bachelor's level, at the master's level, and any additional studies. The primary basis of admission is that completed bachelor's degree. So make sure you submit all of your transcripts with your application. If you need to submit additional transcripts, you're going to have to get those sent in directly to the School of Graduate Studies office via email or fax or physical mail from your institutions. This is the only time that you yourself can submit your transcripts. So make sure that you have them scanned. So if you have your physical transcripts with you, or if you can download them from your previous post-secondary institution, or if they mail them to you, scan them in PDF format, 100% size, and I encourage you to scan both front and back. We want to see if there's a GPA legend or scale that will support the admission process. And again, there's specific information if you have to submit your transcripts after your application. It's encouraged that you try to get everything done ahead of time. But if you do have to send them to the School of Graduate Studies or have your post-secondary institutions send them, make sure you send them via the methods, either email to grad.studies@queensu.ca or via physical mail. There's the address there that can be found on the SGS website, or you get them faxed. The fax number is located also on the SGS site. All right. Here is a sample of a correct transcript. So what a transcript needs to have are the courses that you've taken, as well as the grade that you have achieved. Ideally, an official transcript has a seal, a stamp, something that denotes that it's official, and it highlights what credential you've completed. And the image on the right-hand side there is a back of a transcript. It does show the legend, like tells us if you have a T next to a course, that it's a transfer. Please hold off on the Q&As. I'm going to get to probably some of these, so just don't ask any questions at this point. Just continue to observe the information that's coming in. So here's some examples of official transcripts. Again, make sure that they are scanned. You can scan them in color or black and white, whatever works, whatever looks best upon our review, and make sure you scan both front and back. Here are some examples of what we don't accept in place of transcripts. On the left is basically just the credential that an individual has received. In this case, it's a Bachelor of Arts in Philosophy. We don't just accept that in place of transcripts. We need to see these items here. We need to see the courses that you've taken. Another example of things that we do not accept in our program are WES credentials, or any third-party organization that assesses credentials from international institutions. We need your transcripts to conduct our own assessments. WES documents can be delivered in with your application to support your application, but it doesn't meet the transcript requirement. So we can't just take WES alone. WES can be provided alongside your official transcripts. If you don't have your transcripts right now, if you're kind of preparing, all right, I'm interested in applying for the winter term or the fall term for next year, this is the opportunity for you to begin the process of gathering your transcripts. If you're able to communicate with your previous post-secondary institutions, and all of them, if you've attended multiple, you need to provide all of them with your application. Talk to them now. Start gathering transcripts, whether you need to order them through physical mail or if they can email them, or if you can log into a system where you can download your transcript. Start doing that process now, because the only time you can submit transcripts on your behalf is with the application. Once you pay for that application, they need to be sent directly from your previous post-secondary institution. So for example, myself, I went to York University. I would have to have York send their transcript directly to Queen's. That's fine. That's a Canadian institution. If you're coming from an international institution, that may take a little bit longer, and you're going to have a longer process in place to get transcripts sent directly from your previous institution to the School of Graduate Studies. So it's easier for you to have this ready to go from all of your previous post-secondary institutions at the time of your application. And again, scanned 100%, both front and back, in color or black and white, whatever is the clearest for us for review. I'm going to skip this slide because I think this will be better coming back to later. Let's talk a little bit about email correspondence. So a lot of people are trying to find out more information about the application process, about your application specifically, and you're sending us emails. It's really important that you provide us the proper information. When you're emailing our program office, include your application reference number. It's a pretty long number that's unique for every application. Make sure that's in your title line. If you have any questions, if you're providing any documentation, like an English language proficiency test score, make sure you're including your application number. And that's not just for us, that's also for any communications that you have with the School of Graduate Studies. They need that number in order to be able to tie it directly to your application. Lots of people share surnames, so it's difficult for us to search in our system. And we don't want to have to go back and ask for additional information. Just include your application reference number. One of the things that we ask you to do is just to Utilize common courtesy when it comes to emailing or phone calls. We don't actually have a phone number for the program, so the only correspondence that we want to have is via email. But if you're emailing us, if you're emailing the School of Graduate Studies, if you're trying to provide information to them, again, just be courteous. No aggression, no antagonism, no use of inappropriate language. Just be courteous, because we're all trying to work towards the same goal, which is ideally getting you into the program. When it comes to emails sent directly from Queen's to you, once you submit that application, or once you even register for the application system, you should start receiving emails from the School of Graduate Studies. Make sure you read everything. This is the only way that we're going to be communicating with you, and we are pretty wordy in our emails. It's important for you to understand what we're asking of you, and you have all the information to log into the application system, know what's still outstanding with your application. And also, when it comes to our decisions, when we give you an offer of admission, it's going to be the email address that you provided in your application. So again, it's really important that if you've gone through your application, that you make sure that you go back and check the email address that you've provided, and it is the correct one, and it's spelt properly, and all of the punctuation is the same. The @ symbol's correct. There's a period where there needs to be. If you have any additional symbols in your email address, that it's accurate. This is the only way we're going to be interacting with you. Make sure you check your junk mail folders. Maybe something's gone there from Queen's. If you still have an issue with the application, if you're not receiving things, you can contact the email address grad.studies@queensu.ca. Our colleagues over in the School of Graduate Studies office, they manage our application system, so they're going to be able to help you with any technical questions. So as I mentioned, the current status of the admission process, the winter 2023 application is going to open in a few days, May 1st. So it's going to take us several months to get back to all of our applicants. And we really encourage you to, again, utilize sort of self-directed monitoring of the situation. Log into the application system once you submit your application. You'll be able to see if documents are still outstanding. For example, maybe one of your references still hasn't submitted a reference on your behalf. You'll see that by logging into the system, not so much by just contacting us and asking us to review it for you. You will be able to control a lot of elements within the application system directly. So when I say that it takes us a lot of time to get through all of our applications, we have a lot of applicants, a lot of interest in our program. One of the other takeaways that I want you to really understand from this session is patience. We assure you that we're going to get back to all of our applicants when they've submitted all of their appropriate documents and we review their application. It's just going to take us some time. So we don't provide updates on applications throughout the process. It's only once you submit your application and all the documents are in, you'll know that you'll be assessed. And then we'll provide you with an assessment in late November for our winter individuals, or for our fall individuals, it'll be late June, early July. So please be patient. We're getting to the Q&A section here soon. I'm not asking you to add in your questions now. I want to go through the frequently asked questions first, and then you can start populating the Q&A box here. So let's go through the frequently asked questions and then go ahead and submit your questions. So the questions probably that we get the most is this program online? The answer to that is the GDipICL is delivered entirely online. There's no need for you to transition to Ontario or to Kingston for this program. Also, how much does this program cost? The total cost of the program is roughly $14,500. That doesn't include a student levy fee, which is one time, I believe it's a $34 fee, and then textbooks. Textbooks roughly run, I believe, about $400 at this point, but the payment for tuition is done per term. So you're not paying the entire amount up front. You pay for a term or the courses that you're taking. If you're a part-time student and you're only taking 1 or 2 courses, you only pay for those at the beginning of the term. There are funding options available for individuals through RBC. We are not funded through OSAP though. So there's no OSAP eligibility for individuals for our program. So keep that in mind. Like I mentioned, there's an RBC line of credit. And for anybody who's applying to our program for full-time applicant status, you can apply to our GDipICL entry bursary through the Student Awards Office. And we send that link out to everybody to apply for that. You may have a question about the postgraduate work permit. Is our program PGWP eligible? It is not. We are online, not because of COVID. This is our design. We want to be an online program. Therefore, we are not eligible for the PGWP. So keep that in mind if that is something that you require. Also, it's not required for our program. We don't require any specific permits or any specific type of study, grants, or access for any of our students. We welcome international and domestic students equally, and the amount that you pay in tuition is all done for the same amount for anybody globally. Is this the only pathway to becoming a regulated Canadian immigration consultant? At this point, it is. Queen's University, we developed this partnership with the college to be the only English language education pathway to allow our students to be eligible for the entry to practice exam. If this is the career path for you, this is the program for you. But like I said, there is a French language program. It's with the University de Montreal. So if you are a fluent French speaker, that's a great program as well. And they will be providing a little bit of additional Quebec information. But we are a national program, so we will be covering all Canadian provinces and territories and international education. There's just a little bit of additional Quebec knowledge within the University de Montreal. I've completed a previous immigration consultant program. What do I do? So like I mentioned, there have been other programs out there, college programs where people have taken credentials and tried to become an immigration consultant. What I encourage you to do is, first step is to contact the college. They have provided a window of 3 years from the last time that you've completed your previous immigration consultant study for you to be able to write the entry to practice exam. If you're outside of that window, though, you're no longer eligible for the EPE, and you have to take our program in order to become eligible. We don't provide letters of academic standing, and there's not much that we do in regards to updates or refresher courses. We require our students to enroll in the program, or previous students to enroll in the program, complete all 9 courses, and then be eligible for the EPE. The industry is changing. It has changed from where it used to be to where it is now. This program is now the only English language education pathway to becoming an RCIC. Let's talk a little bit about English language proficiency tests. This seems to be a question we get a lot. We have a set number of ELPTs that we accept for our program. Here they are: the IELTS Academic, the CAIL Computer Edition or CE, the TOEFL paper-based, or the TOEFL internet-based. So you may have done an IELTS general test. Say you're a permanent resident or now a Canadian citizen and you recently immigrated to Canada and you did provide an IELTS general test. We don't accept those. We need to see the IELTS Academic because our program is now the English language standard for the industry, for individuals becoming regulated Canadian immigration consultants. The college actually has removed the ELPT requirement for the entry to practice exam because we have such stringent guidelines when it comes to ELPT submissions. So that is why we require our students who don't meet the exemptions that we provide out there, and you need to submit your ELPT scores. We'll get into the exemptions here in a little bit, but these are the ones that we accept. I just see a question in the chat. How old do IELTS tests need to be? This is equal for all of these tests. They can be no older than 2 years from the date of your application. So if you apply on May 1st and you're ready for the program, your IELTS test or any of these tests can't be older than May 1st, 2020. So keep that in mind. Here are the tests that we don't accept. We receive a lot of questions about what we may accept. We don't accept these ones. We don't accept IELTS General. We don't accept CELPIP, and we don't accept Duolingo. The only 3 that we accept, well, technically 4, but 2 are from the same organization: IELTS Academic, CAIL Computer Edition, TOEFL paper-based, and TOEFL internet-based. So make sure you're completing those tests and not any of these, not IELTS General, not CELPIP, not Duolingo. If you have any of these previously, we can't accept them. And as I mentioned from the question that I saw in the chat, if your IELTS test is from 2017, that's not going to be acceptable. At this point, it's going to be pretty much anything beyond 2020. We're not going to be able to utilize. They have to be within 2 years, and that's pretty much industry standard. How do you submit your ELPT scores? So there is a process for each of these tests that we accept to getting your scores into the School of Graduate Studies. For TOEFL, what you do is you contact TOEFL and have them release your test scores to School of Graduate Studies using institution code 0949. Don't do this at this point. This is for when you're ready to apply. For IELTS Academic, you email your TRF to grad.studies and they can access your scores. And for KLCE, again, it's very similar to TOEFL. You contact the organization and you have your scores sent directly to the School of Graduate Studies. You'll all be receiving this presentation, or you can actually rewatch this on our Facebook page. So these are something that you don't have to memorize at this point. You'll be able to reach out to School of Graduate Studies for that support moving forward. Let's talk about deadlines for documents. So again, we really encourage everybody to submit your documents with your application, scan those transcripts, get them ready, make sure that we can see the courses you took, the credential you received, and the GPA legend, if there is one on the back. But the deadline for the winter 2023 application is September 15th. That also includes ELPT scores. If you think you may need to take an ELPT, if you don't meet our exemption requirements, begin the process of getting this ready to go, because it's really important that you do submit all of your documentation by September 15th. After that date, we're not going to be able to process your application, and your application is for naught at that point. We received this question a lot. COVID is causing issues with transcript delivery. What can I do? This is where you need to start this process now. So if you attended an institution in India, per se, and you don't currently have your transcript, but you know that that's where you did your Bachelor's of Commerce, you need to begin the process of getting that transcript right away. There may be holdups, there might be things you can access online, but the requirement will be that we see your official transcript. And just like I showed you in those previous slides, we need to see your courses, we need to see all of the stuff there. So begin the process of reaching out to your previous post-secondary institutions and trying to acquire copies of your transcript. If you are unable to do so, or if they don't release documents directly to the previous students, you're going to have to get them sent into the School of Graduate Studies directly. If perchance that they are able to send you a transcript and you want to send that in directly to the School of Graduate Studies, do not open whatever you receive from them. If you receive an envelope from your previous post-secondary institution, throw it in another envelope, address it to the School of Graduate Studies, and send that over right away. Anything that's open is no longer official. So another question, I have copies of my transcripts not sealed. Can I send them into the office? With your application, sure, scan them both sides, submit them with your application, that's fine. After the fact though, if you submit your application and you realize, oh, right, I still have my York University transcript I need to send. I did a letter of permission course, or I did some transfer credit studies from there. You can't send in your transcript at that point. They're not admissible. You will have to get your institution to send them directly into the School of Graduate Studies. So be mindful there. Also, if you send us any documents, say you only have one copy of your transcripts from your bachelor's study, once you send that physical copy of your transcript into the School of Graduate Studies, it's no longer your property. It becomes the property of Queen's University, and you don't get that back. So it's really important to be mindful that if you have documents, you scan them ahead of time and upload them with your application. So ELPT exemption requirements. There are only two ways to be exempt from submitting an English language proficiency test score. Well, technically three. If you are a native English speaker, that's okay. Highlight that on your application, but please note that the admission committee does reserve the right to request an ELPT from any applicant at any point. So if there's any reason for us to believe that we need to see an ELPT in order to support your application, we will request it. So here are the exemption requirements. If you've studied full-time in a university, and it has to be a university, if you've studied at a college, this does not meet our requirement. And if English is the primary language of education, and it's within 12 months from the date of your application, you'll be exempt from providing an ELPT. So if you're just graduated from a university program, and say it was at Western, or maybe it was at a Vancouver-based university. And if you've just graduated and you studied full-time, you would be exempt from needing to send us an ELPT. The other exemption is the completion of the Queen's School of English, English for Academic Purposes, ESLA 150 course with a minimum grade of A. This is not quite the same exemption as the education. You have to receive a conditional offer of admission from us in order to enroll in this program. So it's kind of an after the fact. The easiest way to meet the English language requirements for our program is to show a completed ELPT test score that meets our standards. It's the easiest way for you to do that. I really encourage everybody to look at the ELPT requirements and submit an ELPT rather than take the ESLA 150 course route. It's easy enough to do that. There are quick turnaround times. We actually just had a presentation with the IELTS individuals this morning. IELTS test turnarounds is 3 to 5 days. You take your test, you get your scores in 3 to 5 days. It's easy enough to do any of these tests. For CAIL, it's pretty much the same thing. There's very quick, easy access for a minimal cost for these test sites. Go ahead and utilize them. They're the easiest way to support your English language proficiency in order to gain access to our program. One of the other questions we receive quite often is there anyone in the program I can talk to about their experience? We encourage you to visit our website and review the testimonials. There's lots of really great active students or graduates in this case who have provided testimonials about their enjoyment or their appreciation of the program. I'm an Access Pathway candidate. Is there anything else I need to do? So for our Access Pathway individuals, so say you don't meet our admission criteria. So our admission criteria is a completed bachelor's degree with a B average. If you don't quite meet that, you can apply as an Access Pathway candidate. You'll need to submit your resume and all of the additional materials that the application requires, references, the personal statement of interest questions, all of the submission of all of your documents. So if you did a bachelor's and you're not at a B average and you did your master's and you got an A, we need to see both of those transcripts in support of your application. But Access Pathway are for those individuals who don't quite meet the admission standard. Consider it. It never hinders an application. It can only help those individuals who don't quite meet the needs. So this is at the point where we're happy to answer questions that are here. Go ahead and utilize the Q&A, and you have this opportunity to upvote other people's questions. If you see something that's really important that you want to like and you want to also hear the answer to, go ahead and the thumbs up icon, click that. I'm going to answer some of those verbally here. And we do have some members of my team here answering questions. We're not going to be able to get to everybody. It's a lot of people here today. It's a great turnout. So thank you very much for being here. But we'll try to get to as many of the most common questions that we're seeing in the chat. Also, you're going to be able to rewatch this presentation if you follow us on Facebook. Go ahead and find us on Facebook at facebook.com/QueensLaw GDipICL, or again, just search the program. You'll be able to find us there. We really encourage you to like our page. It's where we primarily communicate with our prospective applicants and students. It's a great resource for you. Also, make sure you review our program website, immigrationdiploma.queenslaw.ca. Lots of great information there. All of the information you need to know about the admission process, frequently asked questions. There's a really great Q&A component there. We really encourage you to review everything on that site. It'll only benefit you by reviewing the materials there. But at this point, I'm going to start looking at the Q&A here and seeing if there's any common questions coming up. The top one here is there any time frame limit between completing the course from Queen's University and applying for a regulated license exam? Very good question. I believe you're looking at a 3-year window. The encouragement is that you complete the EPE as soon as you complete our program. The information will be fresh, you'll be ready. We do have some supports in place to help people with the EPE, but the encouragement is that you do it as quickly as you can. But I believe the window is 3 years. So excellent question. Thank you very much. Next question, who at Queen's University can we contact to get information about the program in order to apply for student loans? Should I have to be accepted first in order to obtain the program details for my loan application? There is a page within our program website that's tuition and financing. So on the website that's on your screens now, there is a link to the RBC line of credit. You can utilize that to start investigating to your eligibility to receive a line of credit for program study. For all other loans, there's nothing that we can do through government funding, so you'll have to research that yourself if there's anything that you can provide or be provided. But again, you can apply for OSAP for our program. There might be other ways or other means to get you funding, but definitely take a look at the tuition and financing tab on our website and begin the process of speaking to the contacts with RBC. Are applications prioritized based on when received, or are they treated on merit basis only? I applied and was told eventually that there were no longer any places available. So the second half of that question, I'm not exactly sure. We basically just do all of our assessments all at once. Once the application closes, we review all of the applications and we try to do a bulk mail out for all of our applicants, whether you are accepted or not, all at once. It's why we don't commit to times, because we want to make sure that everybody is assessed equally, and there is still time after the application closes. So for example, for the winter 2023 application, it's going to close on August 1st. Documents can be submitted all the way up until September 15th. That gives you a month-and-a-half window to provide additional things. And for those individuals who apply on July 31st, that you still have that opportunity to provide documents. So we just review as much as we can. We review everybody, and we go with filling up all of our spots with as many applicants as we can. Like I mentioned, fall is a bigger cohort. Winter is a smaller cohort, but we still receive a lot of information or a lot of applications for both. The key is to make sure that you're applying and you have your documentation ready to go. It's just easier for us if we're not waiting until the last minute in order to receive your documents. So if you have your transcripts currently from all of your post-secondary education. So again, for example, let's use myself. I went to York University and I went to St. Lawrence College here in Kingston. I need to submit both those transcripts, one from York, one from St. Lawrence College. For yourself, if you went to a place for your bachelor's, another place for your master's, if you did your PhD, and if you did a grad certificate, we need to see transcripts from all four of those institutions if they are different institutions. If they're all one institution, that's fine. One transcript works so long as it highlights everything. But you need to make sure that you have copies of all these transcripts. And again, the easiest way to get them to us is to receive them before you apply. You can begin the application now, start filling it out, but don't submit it until you receive those documents and you can upload them with your application. All right, what else am I seeing? Is transition from part-time to full-time possible? Excellent question. It is on a limited basis. If you are looking at, or even the other way around as well, full-time to part-time. Circumstances change. I mean, if we were starting people in this program in January 2020, imagine what happens a couple months later and we get into the pandemic. So things can adjust so long as you communicate with our program staff and you work with them to develop a study plan that is appropriate for you. So there are opportunities for you to change your study plan throughout the your study. All right, what else do we have here? If I'm reapplying and you have already have my transcripts from last year, do I have to resend it? Excellent question. If you have applied previously and you did submit all of the necessary documentation, we can move that information to an updated application. You can actually contact the School of Graduate Studies to have that stuff migrated over. The key will be that nothing is outdated. If you had to submit an ELPT, if that's no longer within the 2-year window, you'll have to resubmit that. References are going to be really key, making sure that they are resubmitted potentially if they're no longer applicable. And again, if there was a reason why your application wasn't complete because some document wasn't received, make sure that you do have that ready to go when you reapply to the program. All right, I have my transcripts on hand, or in hand, sorry. Do I still ask my university to send you to you guys again? So excellent question here. If you have your transcripts, definitely upload them, have them ready to go with your application. For all individuals who become students of the program. So for example, you apply, you've received an offer of admission, you accept. Students then have to have official documentation sent directly to the School of Graduate Studies from your previous post-secondary institution, or if you have a sealed official copy of it. It's a requirement of the School of Graduate Studies. It's definitely something that you need to consider, that you'll have to upload transcripts in your application and then have official transcripts sent later on. It's just the requirement of all grad study students across Queen's University. So you will have to have your school send in transcripts later on, but that's not a requirement for the admission process. Admission only needs to see your uploaded copies with your application. That's why we really encourage you to gather your transcripts and have them ready to go. Let's see if there's any other consistent questions. Would the applicants be accepted on first come? Oh, sorry, we've covered that. Can I provide 2 professional references if I have finished my latest post-secondary study 3 years ago? Excellent question. Thank you for that. I will use myself as an example. When I was going through post-secondary, I would say I didn't have the greatest relationship with my professors. It was a huge institution. There were upwards of 500 people in my courses at any given time. I wouldn't be able to provide an academic reference. I would provide 2 professional references. So if you are within that 5-year window, try to acquire an academic reference if you can. If you don't have those connections, make sure that your professional references are of management or supervisor, not friends, not family member. That would be acceptable. But again, try your best to find an appropriate and accurate academic reference if you can. All right. If I have completed education in Canada, do I also need to I don't quite know what that word is back home. So this isn't a situation where your most recent study is the only thing we accept. We need to see everything. So for example, an individual who studied in Argentina, who did their bachelor's in Argentina, then came to Canada and studied their master's at, say, the University of Toronto. You need to send both your University of Toronto transcript and your study back in Argentina. The requirement is that all applicants have to declare all post-secondary study. And some individuals have gone to several different institutions, and that even includes letter of permission, transfer credits, other studies that you've done. So say I was at York for my 4 years and I did a term at the University College Oxford. I have to get that Oxford transcript if it's not declared and the grade is declared on my York transcript. We need to see everything. You can't just send in one document and expect to be admitted based on that. You have to declare all of your study. It's really important for us to get a fulsome picture of who you are as a student. And the master's, PhD, additional studies will only support your application. It won't hinder. We need to see that. All right, let's see. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the ELPT. If I reach the IELTS at, oops, sorry, that has just suddenly jumped. I apologize for that. There. If I reach IELTS Academic Band 7, but not in all components, may I apply for Access Pathway applicant? So the Access Pathway applicant is not particularly for the ELPT requirements. It's more so for the transcript, like if you didn't receive a B average in your undergrad. The ELPT numbers we are very stringent on. You'll need to retake the IELTS and receive an overall score of 7 with no component lower than 7. So keep that in mind. Do I need to take another English test after I finish our program? No. So the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants no longer requires ELPTs for the RCIC entry to practice exam. They accept our standards that will meet that requirement. So you don't have to resubmit a score at that point. You only have to submit it at this point. So the reality is it's best to submit your score with your application or in support of your application now, because this is the only point that you have to do it. And it's really important. We are very stringent that you're able to succeed in the program in English language. So really, it's key for you to identify that you have that ability by either taking an IELTS Academic, a KLCE, or one of the TOEFL-based tests. So again, review it. It's a cost. I understand that. We understand it at the program level, but it is extremely important. Another question. I have a bachelor degree in the University of the Philippines, and I am not sure if it is considered as a recognized university. In case it is not recognized, do I only need to submit the transcript of records and diploma? So This is an interesting question. A lot of individuals asked about recognized or unrecognized institutions. We do that assessment on our end. We are professionals. We are the admissions people here who have the processes and the tools in place to assess these things. This is not really a requirement of the application or the applicant. The applicant just needs to identify what they've done and send us all of those transcripts. It's not for you to really need to worry about what is an accredited institution or not. We'll make that determination and we will reply back to the applicant based on our assessment, depending on what the credentials are that you've provided. So don't worry about that component. The real thing that you need to focus on is acquiring the transcripts and having them ready to go with your application. Or if you're unable to do that within the next 3 months, making sure you fill out the application and you've begun the process of having those transcripts sent over to the School of Graduate Studies, either via fax, email, or physical mail. We need to see your documents. That's the number one thing that I would get you to take away from this session with. We need to see all of your transcripts in order to understand where you've done your bachelor's and where you've done all of your other studies. Don't worry about accreditation. Don't worry about those components. You just need to submit them. And the easiest way to submit them is by uploading them with your application. All right, let's see if I've got any further questions here. I mean, I know we've got a lot of questions, but I'm going to try and answer what I can that I see a lot of likes based off of. Even if you have just the B average from a bachelor's degree and have some further studies afterwards where you did better, does that help to strengthen your application? I mean, it definitely doesn't hurt to demonstrate that you've done better. But again, the requirement is that if you've done additional studies, that you provide it. There are certain things that you don't have to provide. If you've just done some updating for work, say you're a certified practicing accountant, you're a CPA. I believe that's what the CPA acronym stands for. Don't quote me on that. But if you are a CPA and you did an upgrading course just to make sure that you're active, or if you're a lawyer and you've attended a course at the Faculty of Law with Queen's, those are not things we need to particularly see. We need to see things that you've studied in and you've gained credentials for. Bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, PhD, 2-year diploma, 3-year advanced diploma, certificate programs. Those are things that you've sat down and studied multiple courses for. We need to see those. And again, it's those ideas that if you did undergraduate studies at one institution, but say you did a half year away. For Queen's, we have a Castle program. If there were a separate transcript for that study away that isn't declared on your main transcript, we have to see that. So we really need to see everything that you've completed, which is why we started this webinar now. The application hasn't opened yet. You still have plenty of time to reach out to your previous post-secondary institutions and gather all of your transcripts together for uploading with the application. So really, really key to begin this process now. Even if you're applying for the fall 2023 term, that application doesn't open until October. If you've communicated with your post-secondary institution, so say you attended a school in Iran, just a random selection. And if they say that they're not able to get you your transcripts until August, you're going to probably need to wait until October to apply, because it's going to be easier for us to assess your application with everything uploaded. There's no harm in applying now or applying for the fall. It's just really key that you have your documents ready to go with your application. Let's see what else. So there will be copies of this recording on our Facebook page. So the Facebook page that you see here, I definitely encourage everybody to go and like it. There's going to be a lot of information provided to prospective applicants and students. This is going to be the primary place where you're going to gain a lot of knowledge about applying to our program. And we're going to be hosting this webinar again, probably later on in May. If you want to come back and hear the information again, it's really important. So we really want you to attend. So follow us on Facebook, and this is where you're going to get all of this information. I'm seeing a few questions about the Access Pathway. Access Pathway is definitely a place for individuals who academically don't quite meet the needs of our program. The primary basis of admission for our program is a completed bachelor's degree with a B average. Now that's a B average on the Queen's scale, so it's going to vary. So you need to kind of understand if you were if you were good enough to meet the B, if you surpassed that, if you aced all of your studies in whatever the method of study was in your home institution, and it varies. I see a question about what a B is on a 100-point scale. Technically, on a 0 to 100 scale, a B would be 75. But we know that for institutions in India, that the 100-point scale slightly adjusts, and there's different gradings for that. And we have ways of studying that behind the scenes, and we can't provide that information out. You need to just kind of determine if you meet that B average. If you haven't, if you B minus, C plus, if you didn't quite meet the academic needs, and we completely understand that a lot of people have difficult times in their undergraduate, you might want to consider being an Access Pathway applicant. It is a really good way to get yourself like acknowledged, to provide all of your documents, to demonstrate through your professional experience in your resume that you're ready for this program. So it's really important that you understand the difference between the two. If you feel that you're close to the B and not quite there, it never hurts to apply as an Access Pathway candidate. It's only an additional document. There may be some additional requirements, but the admission committee will ask that at the time. The Access Pathway is definitely available for those people who don't quite meet the needs. If you were an A student in your undergraduate, don't worry about the Access Pathway. Make sure you just submit your documents and that you're ready to go. All right, let's see what else we have here. I see that people have their hands up. We're not taking verbal questions, so continue to utilize the Q&A. We'll actually remain open for another 7 minutes, so we'll try to grab a few different documents or a few different questions here. Okay, so here's a question. Somebody asked about exemption in English within 12 months when they studied in their university. If a certain university is accepted, if the primary basis of education is in English and it is declared on the transcript, which it usually is, that will be acceptable. There are many countries around the world where English is the primary basis of education. We will accept that for the exemption if it's within 12 months of your application and you did full-time studies. Again, though, the admission committee may request your ELPT scores if they feel that they want it in support of your application. We can request this at any point. So just be prepared, review the different tests that are available. And if you feel you might be close to being kind of asked for that, or if you definitely don't meet any of our admission exemptions, go ahead and start working towards the completion of one of those tests. All of the test centers that we accept, IELTS, CALE, and TOEFL, they have amazing resources within their site that will help individuals get the scores that they really need to achieve. So just do the research. All of those are linked through our program website, and determine which one is right for you. I'm seeing a lot of WES questions. We do not accept WES accreditation or certification in support of your application, or no, it's in support of your application. That's fine. It doesn't replace the need for a transcript. So we will absolutely need to see a transcript. And I'm going to quickly jump back in my presentation and again, show you what an official transcript looked like. This is what we need to see. We need to see courses broken down. We need to see grades achieved. We need to see pass fails. And we need to see if you achieved the credential that you were going for. So a lot of institutions will see kind of a breakdown here of what the courses are. And then at the bottom, it'll say completed Bachelor of Commerce this day with this GPA. That's what we need to see. We also need to see the back of that transcript. If there's anything on the back that has kind of a GPA legend, if it gives us kind of some abbreviations that are utilized, we need to see that. We don't accept WES in place of your transcript requirement. We would need to see both if you have both. If you don't have WES, that's fine. You don't need to pay for your transcripts to get approved. We will accept whatever you currently have in transcript wise. And if you happen to have WES, we'll accept those with your application as well. All right, let's see if there's anything else that we can cover today. I'm sure there's a ton of things we could cover, but of course we have limited time and a whole lot of interest. This is fantastic. Thank you very much for attending. Let's talk about full-time employment and full-time study. Our program is extremely rigorous. It's very intensive. We encourage people to consider our program like a full-time job. We want you to be successful. So really take the number of hours that you would have to take as a full-time student, similar to what you would be working full-time. So like 35 to 40 hours per week. It's why we offer the part-time study opportunities. But again, those are on a very limited basis. Consider if you can accept full-time, and again, see what you can do with your employment situation to really commit yourself to your studies. Even if WES does depict grades and explanation, that does not meet the needs for the transcript requirement. We need to see a transcript directly from your institution in English so that we can conduct our own assessment. Let's see. I saw a question, is 5 years experience in related field necessary? We have a pretty broad scope of what we require in regards to relevant experience when it comes to immigration. You can depict any type of professional study that professional work that you've conducted. We'll review your resume in equality with all other resumes that we receive. It's why we ask you to fill out personal statement of interest questions within the application. So again, those questions are, what is motivating you to apply to the GDipICL, and what are you going to do upon graduation of the GDipICL? We need to see you as a fulsome picture of a person. Your resume is going to help, and we need to just see what you've been doing. If you have direct connection, if you've been volunteering in a immigration center, or if you've been working for an immigration lawyer, that's really going to help. If you haven't, you can still apply. We'll definitely take into consideration any of our applicants, but we just want to make sure that you have relevant experience to the study or to the program that you're applying for. Let's see, a few more questions. I have a sealed transcript from my institution, but it was mailed to me, not opened. It's written my name and my address on sealed transcript. So yes, if you have a sealed copy of your transcript, if you are fine with submitting that to the School of Graduate Studies for your application, take that sealed envelope, put it in another envelope, and send that directly to the School of Graduate Studies. Their address is located on their application. You can actually find I'm going to find that right now for everybody. We are going to send you some links before we go. And I'm actually going to show you where the address is located. So I'm going to open up the chat. I'm going to send it along. Here is the link to the application page. It's queensu.ca/sgs/prospective-student/how-apply. It's a long URL. It's there for you. But under step 2, compiling the documentation, that will give you more information about the transcript requirements. And for anybody who wants to go visit our program page, there's the admissions page. And then there's some additional frequently asked questions, and I'll send that to everybody as well. Definitely utilize those pages. Really is important for you to visit our websites to review all the documentation or all of the information available, to have your documentation ready to go, and just to be prepared that once you hit submit on that application, that's it. Your application's in. It can't be changed. Double and triple check it. Be ready to submit all of your information. And if you're really close in regards to your grade point average from your bachelor's, consider the access pathway, and really consider if you need to submit an ELPT. If you don't meet those exemptions, you're going to want to take a look at the different tests that we have available or that we accept, and that you can begin your study process. I'm going to try and find one final question here, and I'm going to answer that, and then we'll call it a session. All right. So again, just real quickly for everyone, we will be posting the video of this on our Facebook page, and we will be holding another webinar probably sometime in May. We don't have a specific date yet, but if you want to learn more about that, we will again be sending it out via our mailing list. If you want to sign up for that, you can sign up via our program page, which is now in the chat. And if you wanted to follow us on Facebook, more information will be found there. But again, let's just quickly cover one final question. If I apply for Access Pathway, will I still meet the eligibility to attend the Entry to Practice exam after graduating the program? Of course. Once you gain access to the program, no matter what pathway you take, full-time, part-time, access, you're a student of our program. It's just a matter of the admission process. We want to make sure that we can provide a fulsome review of every application that we receive, every completed application that we see. And again, completion of your application means you submitted all of your transcripts from all of your post-secondary institutions. Both of your references have submitted their documentation, and you've submitted your ELPT if that's a requirement. Once you become a student of the program, it doesn't matter what classification as to how you apply to the program, you're a student. And if you show success in the program and you complete and graduate, you can sit the EPE. You can absolutely become a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, no matter what your previous line of study was, because people grow, people change, people get better at academics. This is the opportunity for you to just utilize the appropriate pathway to gain entrance to the program, demonstrate success, tell us more about you within the personal statement of interest questions, highlight your professional experience if you do apply as an Access Pathway candidate. And once you gain access, we welcome you into the program equally with everybody else. There's no consideration as to how you applied once you become a student of our program. So we really do encourage you to understand what type of applicant you are. And we just encourage you to be prepared to fill out the application, submit all of your documentation, scan those transcripts, start gathering those transcripts for you now really is key to get ready for this application, or to start communicating with your previous post-secondary institutions and get those transcripts into you or the School of Graduate Studies. Again, if there's anything you take away from this, is that the easiest way for us to assess your application is to have PDF copies of your transcripts in English uploaded with your application, so that we're prepared to review what you've done in your studies and we have a complete picture of who you are as a student. I don't think there's much more I can really go off of at this point. Again, what I do encourage you to is follow us on Facebook, find the recording of this, rewatch it if you'd like, or attend a future event. We are going to be hosting another application webinar because we do have 2 applications coming up. Again, the winter application opens May 1st. The fall 2023 application opens October 1st. Review which one's best for you, prepare your information. You will have 3 months from May 1st to August 1st to complete that application. Don't unnecessarily complete it without rechecking, double checking, triple checking everything, spelling everything correctly, speaking to your references and having up-to-date email addresses. Make sure your email address is up to date. And once you do click that submit button, you are ready to provide whatever is required for the admission process. We want to provide you admission in the program, and we appreciate everybody's attendance here today. We're sorry we couldn't get to everybody's question. More information will be out via our Facebook page. And again, we will be hosting this session again. The recording will be out soon. And we just want to thank everybody for participating today. I hope that this was more informative than not, that you got all the information that you need to apply to our program. We are here to help. We hope to see you in the future. We hope to see your application come across our desk, and just have yourself a good day and take care. Thank you very much for attending. Again, follow us on Facebook for more information about upcoming events and more on the admission process. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care.